Hey guys, what's up? JK with Porn Reboot here. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to be talking about a question that I receive a lot. JK, how do I know that I have rebooted? And this is a great one. So what I did was I put together 10 signs that show that you have rebooted. And there are a few things that I would like to make clear before we begin this video. The first thing is that a lot of these signs to look for are dependent on the individual and the level of your addiction. The second is that some of these are from my personal experience, but the vast majority of them are what I've observed from my clients and just from men who have been in contact with me during their reboots for the past 7 years or so. So I want you to keep that in mind, and even though it says 10 signs, you don't have to look for all 10 signs, okay? This isn't just like, oh, it's clickbait and all 10 signs apply to me. All right, it's just a bunch of them that I put together, and I will clarify which ones came from my own life and which ones are more common across the board, and also which ones are rare. You know, it depends on the level of your addiction, as I said earlier on. So let's begin. The first sign that you've recovered is that you no longer experience any erectile dysfunction during sex. Now, if you were, of course, one of those men who experienced PIED when he was having sex, point-induced erectile dysfunction, you start realizing two things, or rather you start experiencing two things. The first thing is that you no longer have problems getting erect when you're actually having physical sex. And the second thing is that a lot of your anxiety that was connected with having sex goes away. And that happens naturally. It doesn't hang around over like a 2-year period unless you have some other issue. So that's one of the first things. Normal erections during sex, able to have sex without losing your erection, and the anxiety that was coupled with that goes away. It does not stay around like regular performance anxiety. The second is improved efficiency at work. And here's what I mean. When you struggle with porn addiction, your executive function is affected. Executive function is regulated by your prefrontal cortex. So basically, it's a function of your brain that allows you to prioritize tasks, it allows you to stay motivated, it allows you to stay focused on certain tasks. And if you've noticed, if you've been off porn for a couple of weeks, sometimes a couple of months, you notice that you're very efficient, you're very focused, you're getting things done, little things like your to-do list, you knock it out. If you're in school or if you're at work, you're getting projects knocked out. If you run a business, a lot of projects, ideas, everything runs more or less smoothly. However, the moment you slip after staying off porn and masturbation for a couple of weeks, you realize that the next couple of days you're a little bit frazzled, you find yourself losing things here and there, you find yourself losing your temper because you're no longer able to follow a train of thought and you're no longer able to complete many projects. So one of the things that you notice when you've rebooted is that it simply just becomes a part of your lifestyle. You are a lot more efficient than you used to be at work. The third one is actually combined to the one I just mentioned right now, which is that you experience a lot more motivation to complete your daily tasks. Now, this is one of those that is very important. This is one of those that applies to me as well. It was something that I experienced. I had no motivation to do things. There were a lot of things that I wanted to do, even from basic things like paying my bills to more complex things like applying for a job or whatever the case may be. But I just couldn't get myself to do them. I would actually get up in the morning and I would have the intention to do it. Sometimes I would start doing it, but it would just fizzle out because I just couldn't see myself sitting down for an hour to study for some certification that I wanted to get. I couldn't do that. So one of the things that I noticed very clearly was that in my career back then in sales, I was able to study, I was able to focus on our product more, I was able to pick up new certifications, and there was nothing else that changed in my life. There wasn't some bonus that I was being given from work. I didn't receive a raise. Nothing special really happened. I didn't make any more money that motivated me to make more money. The only thing that changed was that I was just no longer watching pornography and I was no longer masturbating. That was the big change in my life at that point in time. The fourth is that you begin to experience more intimacy and connection during sex. Now, if you're married, if you have a partner, if you're active sexually with your partner, and you're struggling with pornography, you notice that when you have sex with your partner, it's all about the sex, it's all about the positions, it's all about that sexual energy that you experience a lot when you view pornography. Usually there is no intimacy and there's no connection. And when you go through your withdrawal symptoms from pornography, you notice that for a period of time, sometimes there are ups and downs, you feel nothing for your partner, including when you watch pornography too. Sometimes it's just like, there's just nothing. Like, I know she's sexy, she's attractive, but I feel nothing. But you can go in the bathroom and watch a little bit of pornography, get a little turned on, then come out and have sex with her. Or you don't have sex with her and you're absolutely fine to watch pornography. Or even better, even more common, you have sex with her, but right after that, the chaser effect kicks in, you watch pornography and you have so much more fun watching porn than connecting with your partner. Well, one of the things you're going to start noticing is that there's a lot more intimacy. You start being turned on by your partner, and it has nothing to do directly with how she looks. It is just based on the relationship that you have with her. Now, this is another one that applies to me because for 2 years during my recovery, I did go through a phase where I decided that I was going to date multiple women, I was going to have as much sex as I could, and I was going to meet women, but the primary reason for doing this was to overcome the huge amount of anxiety I had around women. And I talk about that in another video. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. But long story short, when my brain fully rewired in about 1.5 years, what happened was that I started losing the urges that I had to just have random sex. I got to a point where I started craving intimacy again, but no longer in a needy way like I did during my porn addiction. I now actually started filtering women out based on certain values, certain things that I looked for in them. And this made sex so much more fulfilling. Eventually I got to a point where casual sex no longer became a priority for me. Then I got into a long-term relationship that I was very satisfied with because it really allowed me to connect, to open up a lot of my emotions and move to the next level of healing from my porn addiction. The fifth sign is increased awareness of emotions. Now, this is a very important one and one that I've noticed in almost all my clients and in many men that I've kept in touch with during their recovery. And what I mean by this is that, well, for instance, in the porn reboot system, I teach men that you have to learn how to identify your emotions. As a porn addict, there are certain emotions that you may have been medicating with pornography, and there are certain emotions that you don't know how to identify because you've completely been avoiding them. So for instance, something may have happened with you and your dad when you were younger, or you may have had experienced a very bad rejection from a woman, or you may have been divorced in your early 20s. Something may have happened in your life and you decided that you were going to protect yourself from being hurt in that way again by no longer identifying with that emotion. So in essence, that emotion that you used to experience is frozen. And it is important during your recovery to identify it and kind of thaw it out so that you can start feeling it. Some of these emotions are good and some of them are bad. But one of the things that definitely happens when you recover is that you start experiencing emotions that you never had before. And it's very, very important to understand how to deal with some of these emotions. The next is another sexual sign, and this is that you start noticing that you are less exhausted after orgasm. Now, typically, when you were in recovery from your addiction in the early days, and when you were struggling with pornography, when you have sex and you orgasm, that's it. It's game over, right? There's no, your refractory period barely exists. You are totally done. In fact, you may not even want to engage in it again. Of course, you're happy to watch porn, but another round of sex, not really in the books. And one of the things that many men notice when they have fully recovered is that your refractory period is back again. You know, if you were fortunate enough to be sexually active, let's say in your 20s, before you became addicted to pornography, you will notice that your refractory period is almost close to what it was prior to the time that you began your porn addiction. So that's pretty exciting. That's a great thing to observe. And for that reason alone, many men are happy to just stay recovered and stay off pornography. The next is that you experience less insomnia. A lot of men who struggle with porn addiction find it very difficult to sleep. And this is a result of your biochemistry. This is a result of a lot of the hormones that are released during the day. Again, there's another video that I've shot about it. I'll leave the link in the description below. But your insomnia pretty much goes away as long as you are healthy and as long as you're maintaining a great sleep schedule. Sleep becomes something that you can manage again. And in my case, my problem with sleep was that I would tend to sleep too long. So I couldn't sleep late at night, so I would end up going to sleep at about 2, 3 o'clock, tossing and turning, then I would knock out for like 8, 9 hours. One of the things I noticed when I recovered was that, I hate to use the term sexual energy, but when I was not ejaculating, when I was even not having sex, there was a tendency for me to sleep just 6.5 hours, and I was more consistent with it. I would wake up fully recharged. I wouldn't wake up lethargic and tired and feeling like I didn't sleep for 8 hours. 6 hours was enough for me. So that was one of the things that I noticed, and many men who recover notice that as well. The next sign that you've rebooted is that you start experiencing less feelings of guilt and shame and depression and sadness. And this is one of those that is common across the board. One of the reasons why is because a lot of us deal with shame connected to our porn addiction, and once you get an accountability partner, once you're in the right community and you start sharing your experiences, you get rid of a lot of the shame. Once you are in the right system, in the Porn Reboot program, the Porn Reboot system is designed to help you eliminate specific emotions as well. One of those is guilt. I teach men how to overcome their guilt connected to their porn use. And sometimes that guilt stems from your religious upbringing, it stems from things that may have happened in the past to you traumatically, and it sometimes stems from some of your limiting beliefs. Whatever the case may be, you start releasing a lot of that. Your depression, which comes from multiple failures, losses, disappears as well because you start experiencing more wins. Now, with this particular sign, I cannot speak for the men who have used willpower to overcome their addiction. I can only speak for the men who have used the system. But there are some men that have commented and who have sent me emails who have said, JK, I used willpower. And honestly, when I got to, a year and a half, I got to 2 years, some men have emailed me who've been off it even longer. They're like, dude, I just felt amazing, okay? So you can take it from those men's testimonials. But all those negative emotions, there's a noticeable drop in them. And again, that is one of those things, just like with the having normal orgasms and enjoying sex and being able to have multiple rounds of sex, this is one of those things that is really worth it, because sometimes it's just really the negative emotions that really crush us and get us at the end of the day. Next is that your sex drive and the things that turn you on become a lot more natural. So instead of being attracted and turned on by the things that pornography conditioned you to be turned on to, you start noticing that you're attracted to things that are more natural. So for instance, you may have only been attracted to women who looked a certain way or certain body parts, and now you could be, I'll give you an example of something that happened to me when I recovered. Was I remember having a conversation with a woman, and she wasn't a woman that I found attractive. She didn't have the body shape, or she wasn't my type, so to speak. But there was something about her personality that was just really awesome, and there was this connection, and it wasn't even anything, we weren't flirting, it was just what her personality was like. And suddenly I found myself, having an erection, and there was a little bit of shame there, because even though I was recovered, but I was like, it was so unusual. I was like, why am I attracted to this woman sexually? And I realized that because I'd been off pornography for so long, I was away from all that violence, all that extreme stuff, I was starting to find traits in people that I was naturally predisposed to be attracted to. And that was just a reaction. There was nothing wrong with it. It wasn't bad per se. And that was awesome, because guys, it's so wonderful to be able to look at a woman and really not sexualize her. On the other hand, it's wonderful to look at a woman or connect with a woman and feel your sexual energy. Again, I don't like that word. And it's another thing to look at a woman and experience arousal because of her personality. This is really what you need prior to getting into a relationship. And I tell every man, before you get into a relationship, if you can get to this point, this is really going to help you in choosing your partner, so you don't end up with a partner that's not a good fit because you picked her primarily based on how she looked, and you just completely ignored or overlooked parts of her personality that just weren't a good fit for you. And finally, one of the signs that you have rebooted is that you experience an openness to new experiences and a rekindling of many of your old passions. So there are a lot of men who, as you're struggling with porn, right, and you're trying to beat this addiction, you're getting older as well. Time is passing by. You need to get a job. You sometimes get married. You have kids. Things happen in your life. So sometimes we attribute our lack of excitement for life, or lack of adventure, or losing our passions, we attribute that to just things happening in life, growing up in society. But I would like you to explore the possibility that your porn addiction took you away from many of those things. Your brain rewired. You became so focused on this aspect of your life, and let's say there was an emotion that was connected to a passion of yours, something you really enjoyed. But as you grew up, maybe something came up that may have, let's say, taken that passion away from you, just as a result of growing up. And you didn't know how to deal with that. You're like, man, I'm gonna lose this thing I'm passionate about. And so, because you didn't have coping skills to deal with it, you started watching pornography to deal with the loss of that passion, or the loss of becoming an adult, whatever the case may be. And you never got the opportunity to look at it objectively, find out, okay, like, how can I deal with this? Maybe I can come back to this later on in life. No, you didn't have the chance to mourn it. You didn't have the chance to even see if there was a possibility to rekindle it. And you just started using pornography and masturbation to deal with the strong emotion. But once porn is out of the way, once chronic masturbation is out of the way, you begin to examine the things that you used to be excited about. For me, one of the things was the outdoors. When I was younger, I always had these dreams of going outdoors and being an outdoorsman and camping. But as the years went by, I assumed that I dropped those passions because of work and career and financial obligations, that sort of thing. But once I recovered, all those passions started coming up again, and I started finding ways to incorporate it in my life again. And there's so many other aspects of my life. So that's a very exciting thing to experience when you reboot. All right, brothers? So there you have it. Those are the 10 signs that you have rebooted. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on this. Go ahead and leave them in the comment section. And if you found this video helpful, go ahead and subscribe and like the video. I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll speak to you later in the week.